So for those of you that don't know me, or don't know Zapiet even, we were the pioneers of the local delivery and in-store pickup kind of space on Shopify. As I said, we've been on the App Store for over 10 years now. So today I'm going to share a little bit of the history of Zapiet and some of the technical kind of lessons and hurdles that we kind of learned along the way. Certainly in the pandemic, as you can imagine, pickups and deliveries was kind of an interesting space to be in at that point. So, Deb Mecker, maybe a couple of you know her. So last year she put this same photograph in her talk, and she's here today. So before I founded Zapiet, I used to run an e-commerce agency in South Wales in the UK, and we ended up growing that business pretty well. We took on investors, and one of the investors was based in Miami, and we opened an office up out there, and that's where Deb came to join us. But the more the business grew, the more I felt trapped. The remote work wasn't the vibe of that business, and I really wanted to travel. And so I ended up selling my equity for a measly £5,000 and set off alone, trying to figure out what on earth I was going to do next. It was then when I was in San Francisco, I was kind of, doing my homage to Silicon Valley at the time, that I stumbled across a Shopify forum post of merchants. They was just demanding a pickup solution for Shopify. One just didn't exist. And so I thought I had a solution. So I spent a couple of hours, pieced together some rudimentary code and posted a reply. And then almost instantaneously, merchants replied back saying, how can I get this code added to my store? And so I thought, okay, that's pretty cool. Maybe have I just discovered one of the greatest untapped opportunities in the history of the App Store? I don't know, maybe I had. So anyway, I spent the next 30 days building out that rudimentary code into a fully functioning app. And in January of 2015, it was published on the App Store. We're now used by over 10,000 merchants in more than 150 countries worldwide. We have 6 apps on the App Store, 2 what we call flagship apps, which pick up and delivery, our most famous one. Zapiet Eats, which is kind of Deliveroo, imagine that, but for Shopify, without the crazy commissions, all of that kind of stuff, does everything. It's amazing. And then we have other sidekick apps that you can check out. So yeah, just a couple more claims to fame. We're featured recently in the Shopify Academy, which was really cool. We've been over 7 times the Shopify staff pick, which was pretty amazing. So thanks if there's any Shopify staff here. Kia, maybe you was one back in the day that chose us or not, I don't know. We're the only Plus certified app in our category. We were the first app in our category to achieve 1,000 5-star reviews. Well done to Sam at the back, head of support, for kind of heading that up. And we were the first point of sale solution for pickups. So yeah, just before the pandemic, I was offered a life-changing amount of money for the app. $3 million, in fact, all cash, 3 weeks to complete, and no earn-out. If I was going to ever sell the business, I don't want to work. I just want to go traveling again and not have to take my laptop. But something in my guts told me that there was more still to be done. We were entirely bootstrapped. It was only a couple of months ago that I was kind of bankrupt, sleeping on my mom's sofa, and then to get an email like this, I was like, well, that's crazy. But yeah, something in my guts told me not to bother, and so I replied back saying, no thanks, I'll roll the dice. I'm not sure Emily was that happy at the time. For those of you who don't know me, she's a partner in the business and my now wife. But I think it was the right choice in the end. So yeah, we still had so much I felt we could achieve independently. And I had no idea what I would do next, apart from going traveling and doing nothing. But I'm sure I already got bored. So then the pandemic happened. And at 8 p.m., the Friday night before the US and Canada kind of went into lockdown, I had a call off Shopify. And they was drafting up what was going to be their pandemic response. Like, what is Shopify going to do to kind of help merchants at this time of crisis? And as I said, there was no pickup solution available at all for Shopify at the time. So they said, Andrew, can Zapiet handle the load? If we include you in this official response, can you handle it? And of course, I said, yeah, of course. It's no, there's absolutely no problem. Anyway, absolute disaster. We were a tiny team of 4 at the time, so there was Emily, Sam, and another support agent. That was the entire team. I was the only developer as well. We would quite often go to sleep with over 1,000+ support requests in our inbox. We would work well over 100 hours a week, all of us, trying to just handle what we could. It just was crazy. And we saw a year's worth of growth in just 10 days. We even tried to kind of like handle the support load. We decided that creating like a waiting page, we didn't want to tell Shopify to unpublish our app off the App Store. They gave us this opportunity. So we wanted merchants to still be able to install it, but we needed to buy some time to try to figure out how the hell we're going to make this app scalable, like both in terms of support and technically. So we created this little waiting page. Anyway, everybody hated it. It was the worst idea ever. Never make one of these. Merchants hated it because they were messaging saying, look, we're trying to, fight for our businesses, trying to save our lives. Agencies hated it because they had previously used our app. They knew how to set up the product. And yeah, we hated it because we just wanted to get people using our app as quickly as possible and try to help out where we could. So then we call this Master Chef more like Master Mess. So for the first 3 weeks of the lockdown then, every Thursday night at 7 p.m., our app would crash. And we had absolutely no idea why. The first week, it was okay. A couple of merchants were frustrated, reasonably so. It would just go down for about 20 minutes, come back online. But then the next Thursday it happened again, and the Thursday after that. It's safe to say the third time it happened, it wasn't great. And I think we got an App Store world record where we got 11 one-star reviews in the same day. And at that point, we had no one-star reviews before. All 5 stars, 11 in one day, after all of that hard work. But they were well-deserved. So our servers are crashing, orders were duplicating, email notifications were going haywire, and our average support time, I think, Sam, was about 72 hours minimum just to kind of like say hello. So what went wrong? Well, the size of the support team was obviously an issue. So Sam and Emily kind of quickly tried to take over that. We was hiring our friends, family, everybody that we could, even Sam's mum, and she still works with us to this day on support, which is pretty crazy. And then, of course, there was technical scalability issues, which is mainly what I'm here to talk about today. Lack of experience. I'd never built an app before. I'd built many online stores, but never built an app. And yeah, I was the only developer until well after the pandemic. So yeah, we needed to hire. So scalability issues. If you're not that technical, sorry, feel free to have a nap now. Promise I won't take too much time. Try to be as clear as I can. So yeah, there's a couple of topics that we'll cover. So my first point of call was migrating from a monolith app to microservices. So a monolith app is where you've got kind of one server handling everything. So it was handling our order processing, our rates generations, our storefront widget, all of our APIs, our integrations with last mile delivery providers, everything. If one part of that system goes down, everything goes down. And it was a huge code base, and it was just me. So it was hard to identify where the problems lie. And so I decided I would migrate to microservices where we split off the locations API into one, which would handle the storefront widget, which meant that I could isolate that, I could make sure if there's performance issues there, it could stay up and running. So if the orders service went down, which would be adding tags, sending email notifications, all of that kind of stuff, customers could still place orders. And so I felt that was the most important thing to do. So yeah, that meant I could make changes and isolate them. So if I made an update to the widget, to what power the storefront widget, I knew that the orders would be processed and remain fine because no changes had been made there. So that really increased confidence and increased the deployment speed, which was great because I was deploying rapidly. The biggest thing I learned was probably this, it's called like database indexing and something called N+1, we call them N+1 nightmares here. They crash your database, they cause havoc with your LCP now if you're going for built for Shopify, and they increase your server costs. So here's a bit of code. Some of you might not make any sense, but we're grabbing an account from the database. We're then cycling over that account's locations and returning an array of address details. Nice and easy, nothing wrong with that. We have 2 super fast requests to the database there, one to get the account, one to get the locations. But what happens, and this was kind of, I guess not an accurate example, but it's kind of something like this, that we actually had this issue in the pandemic, where we then wanted to add the rates that belong to that location. So, okay, did they offer store pickup? Did they offer local delivery? What was the price? What was the rate names for that? So here you can see we're getting the account, we're getting the locations, we're cycling through each of them, we're then creating an array of rates, and we're pushing that onto the object, to the array at the end and returning it. That then results in 7 database queries, which is rubbish. We don't need to do that. It should be free. Maybe less. Anyway, thankfully, turns out after a bit of research and a lot of YouTubing, whilst also trying to handle everything else, I found out it was one single line of code, and we just put with rates, and that solves this n+1 issue. And what that does is instead of doing those individual queries to the rates, where it was like select rates where location ID equals 1, where it equals 2, it does this. I don't really know what it means, but it's location ID in, and then it's an array of IDs. So it does one single query, it returns all of the rates in one go, and so then you only have the 3 round trips to the database, which is significantly better. So 12 queries to the database isn't much. But if you then run in a command, so say, for example, you want to run the command on all of the accounts in the database. We've got 10,000 merchants using us. So we do exactly the same as before. We grab all accounts from the database, iterate over those, get all of the rates, add it onto an array. We then get all of the database queries in the entire world. And that's why it's a problem, because there it will just max out your database memory, crash everything. So again, easily solved by just preloading those things. If you guys are using Laravel now, you can even turn on I think lazy loading by default now, so you don't even need to do this, which is great. But be careful, there are other things there. So then this is how the query looks. It will just add everything into that last line there with the rates, and things get super efficient. So this is something that helped us hugely in the pandemic. Next up was duplicated orders. So if you're only dealing with 10,000, 20,000 records in a database, that's fine. As soon as you get into the multiple millions of records, things go crazy. Things don't behave like they should. And, well, I mean, probably they do behave like they should, but I did things wrong. But yeah, things do go crazy in MySQL. And so yeah, we were sending duplicated emails. There was fulfillments going to the wrong places. There was mismatched inventory. It was a nightmare. So we had this database structure or something like this to start with. So it was an orders table where we had a unique ID for ourselves, which had a primary key, account ID, the Shopify order ID, customer name, email, etc. But we had no indexes on the database at all. And so that ended up being what caused the main MasterChef issues, was when they was processing so many orders that it would just crash the order processing, but because it was a monolith, it would also crash the widget API, so every merchant couldn't then place orders. So our hosting provider at the time, because we was on a piece of crap VPS or whatever, they was like, look, it's causing issues internally with our other clients that you really need to add some indexes. I didn't even know what an index was at the time. So I just panicked, added in indexes to everything, and that didn't really work. What I should have done was added a unique compound index to the account ID and the Shopify order ID. This would then make sure on the database level that we could never have duplicates of the same Shopify order ID. The problem was, if you've already got millions of records in the database and you try to add this unique index to a production server, it's going to crash. And that's exactly what happened, because obviously I tried it, thinking it'd be a quick fix. And yeah, the database went down. That wasn't great. So reboot, another half an hour of downtime, more 1-star reviews. So the way that we solve this, and I guess my advice to anybody else that gets in that situation, just add your indexes properly at the start, do the research. But if you don't expect your app to grow into the beast that kind of ours did, this was just meant to be a side project, then this is the way that you solve it. Or one of the ways. So we added a column called the hash that then had a unique index on that hash field. And then we had some code that when an order would come in, we would then grab the account ID, the external ID, compound it together, base64 encode it. I don't know why base64 encoded it. I'm sure just account ID and external ID would have been fine. But anyway, that's what it is. And then that helped solve this issue. And we stopped then having the duplicate orders. Yeah, definitely using right indexes is the way to go. So as you can see here, I'm querying now against the hash of the order. With the unique index on it. You can see in the top example where we don't have the unique index, when we run that select star from orders, it's returning 1,000 records from the database, totally unnecessarily. That's a slow query, certainly if you have millions of records, because it would have to cycle through all the millions of records until it finds the one that matches the ID that you provided. Once we apply the unique index, it just returns the single one. It's super fast. Happy days. So yeah, if you're worried about your queries, wang that explain statement beforehand. It will tell you which keys are being used, if there's missing indexes, that kind of thing. So you want to see that rows number the lowest possible that you can in general. So yeah, my top tips on indexing. Use the correct indexes from the start. Use unique indexes for natural deduplication to stop that, to stop your PHP or your Ruby code having to worry about stuff. If you're on serverless and you've got multiple instances or processes and things at the same time, you need the database to kind of help with that. Don't over-index as well. So as I mentioned, like where it's just like spamming indexes on everything, every index slows the performance down because every time it writes to the database in your, like when you add in an order to the database, it's also having to update the index. That all takes time. Make sure you drop unused or redundant indexes. You may need an index today, you don't need it tomorrow. So make sure that you kind of keep a look at those and obviously use explain to analyze query performance. So I don't know if Harshdeep's in the room at the minute, or if any of you use Planet Scale, but he's a big fan of Planet Scale. And so I had to have a look at what it was. And we set it up on one of our staging apps a couple of weeks ago. And I'll tell you what, it's absolutely awesome. I'm sure you can get this stuff from AWS and other tools, but I get a weekly report from them saying, hey, look, this index was never used, remove it. Update the character set to do this. I never knew changing the character set on a database can improve performance, but it can if you're sorting orders, it turns out. And so I definitely recommend Planet Scale. It's a bit costly, but definitely worth it. And the performance gains is huge. Just saves having to worry about looking in CloudWatch and that kind of thing. So onto scaling the team. So don't necessarily need to use Laravel, but I definitely suggest using a framework. Again, I see a lot in the community of people like saying, oh, why would you use a framework? It includes a lot of bloat, this, that, the other, don't need it. It's a lot of extra bytes. Don't care about the bytes. The bytes are fine. What you need to care about is when you're hiring developers and you're growing your team, you need to be able to onboard them as quickly as possible. And by using a framework like Laravel or Ruby on Rails, they have a standard set of conventions and formats that you can follow, which makes it much easier to then grow that team and onboard everybody. You can also take advantage of many third-party packages, so you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Stuff like on Laravel, we have queuing systems built out, we have hosting kind of built out almost using Laravel Vapor. We just do Vapor deploy production. It then deploys everything to AWS and kind of handles everything for us. So we almost don't have DevOps. It's probably why our hosting bill's so high, though. If we had DevOps, I'm sure we could probably reduce the costs. But yeah, so definitely looking at those tools was great. Another thing we found for when kind of scaling our development team, which again we only did after the pandemic, thanks to Emily forcing me, I think, to hire engineers when I was losing all my hair, and using tools like Laravel Pint and PHP Stan can really help improve code readability. So when your engineers or yourself are handling pull requests and kind of analyzing stuff like that, makes it much easier to read, which saves time and obviously money then. And also it helps prevent code from miraculously disappearing. We quite often found this when we first started hiring developers. You would get a PR, everything's different, everybody's computer's formatting the code different, so they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to merge this code, and then something goes missing because it's too messy. And so that definitely helps, and strict type your code. So this is just an example of how easy it is to install and run Laravel Pint, or Pint, I don't know how to say it, but British, so I guess Pint. But it will analyze all of your files in the project and make sure that it's correctly formatted. So if you can look at this really crappy code, developers in the room, you feel sick looking at all the bad spacing and things like this. By running that one command, and we do it automatically when we add a commit, it then makes it look more beautiful, which is much more readable. And then all of our developers have the exact same setup. So again, only the changes then in the pull requests, we see exactly what needs to be changed, not formatting changes and things like, oh, there was an extra space here, there was a comma missed there. Everything's standardized, and this helps a huge amount. The next one I was against for years, which is using strict typing. I felt it looked ugly in the code, but it turns out, again, when you're trying to scale the product and you have a team of developers, it's not just you working on it. Your developers don't know kind of what variables you were passing into a function, what data was meant to be returned. Like, was you passing an order object and then you wanted to get a customer's email back? They can just push anything in. So by using PHP Stan, again, super easy to install, it will analyze your code in real time and kind of give you an analysis of, okay, how statically typed is your code or strict typed is your code. And we found this to be a huge benefit for us. So just a really basic example here. We've got this function called getFormatted_date. We don't know what format the date needs to be there. Is it a string? Is it a carbon instance? Is it an integer, Unix timestamp? Nobody knows. But then it will try to format whatever you pass to JNY, can't remember what that means, into a formatted date. But it will throw an error. If that date isn't a carbon instance or something that has that format method on the end of it, it will break. You'll get an error. And so simply by strictly typing it, here we've used carbon, so carbon date, it ensures that the date variable there is a carbon instance to then make sure that the return value is a string, which we want from the format method. So, okay, so where are we at today? We're actually migrated back to a monolith, or well, in the process of migrating back to a monolith. So again, I think this is one of those things is as you grow your development team, it becomes ever harder to onboard teams. We had, I think at the height, 9 different microservices, themes, meta fields, webhooks, locations APIs, anything and everything like split off to try find where the issues were. And now we're rolling them back in. Now I think we just have what we call the mothership, which is the core of the app, which will become the monolith. We have the orders microservice, which we're still considering whether we keep that separate for data residency purposes, and rates. And so, yeah, but we're going to be bringing rates back inside just to ease that onboarding when they're setting up their local environments to then you waste at least a week trying to do that. And then you have synchronization issues where you're trying to synchronize data from the mothership to the microservices. You have rate limiting issues with Shopify if they're both trying to do things at the same time. It's just totally unnecessary. But that's only possible when you've got a team, I feel, and not having a pandemic to deal with at the same time. So, how to scale without the burnout. So health is a top priority. Make sure you look after yourself. Try not to work over 100 hours a week. Working is addictive. We all love what we do. Be sure to reflect on your achievements. That's a great reason to be here this week is to come to these conferences and these events and come to our party tonight and reflect on the good times because it's too easy to be in a rat race and keep thinking, oh, what's next? And make sure you treat yourself. I think as well, it's too easy as founders to worry about everybody else and to forget the reason why you was doing it and to feel like, hey, sometimes spend a little on yourself. Treat yourself to a day at the spa or get some Shopify toenails like Emily did the other day. Just enjoy yourself. And I think that's it for me. I don't know how long I was waffling for, but thank you very much. 23 minutes. That's it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.